That's a very interesting point. Hey guys, how are you today? Glad you could join me. We're here, of course, as you know, for our David Walliams Ice Monster, our next 2 thrilling chapters. I'm just taking some time and reading a book by one of my other favorite authors, known as Stephen King. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's wrote a lot of scary books, but this particular book isn't scary. It kind of helps you with your own writing, tells you things that make you a better writer, some of the things that I like to share with you. So if you want to learn how to do something better, you can probably find a book on how to do it better. I'd like to write better. I think we can all write better. So I've been enjoying this, and of course, I always share some of the stuff I find with all of you. But as you know, we're here for 2 more chapters, chapters 55 and 56 of David Walliams' Ice Monster. Let's get started. Chapter 55, Black Silence. Everything went dark. All Elsie could see was black. All she could hear was silence. All the girl could feel was a deathly chill. At first, she didn't know what was up and what was down. Where was Wooly? In all the chaos and confusion, she had lost sight and sound and touch of her friend. Immediately, the cruel current of the Thames River pulled her far away from the hole she had fallen through. As much as Elsie tried to paddle back to it, that proved impossible. She was being swept further and further away. In desperation, she thumped on the underside of the ice, trying to bash her way through it. Boom, boom, boom. The ice was inches thick. Her tiny fists were no match for it. They couldn't even make a dent. Elsie opened her mouth and let out a scream, but underwater no one could hear her. Just as she felt the life draining out of her and that she was sinking down to a watery grave, she felt a surge underneath her. Something was pushing her up. It was Wooly. The girl was cradled between the mammoth's eyes as her sharp tusks smashed through the ice. Crash! Elsie gasped. Ah! Woo! The girl was soaking wet and freezing cold, but alive. Elsie slid off the mammoth's face, landing on the ice with a thud. Oof! Although shivering and choking from the dirty Thames water, all Elsie could think about was her friend Wooly. She spluttered, "Whoo!" The mammoth's trunk was just poking out of the hole in the ice. As she desperately tried to breathe with all of her might, Elsie held on to it so the animal wouldn't sink to her death. "Hold on, Wooly, please," she cried. The girl knew it would be impossible for her to hoist this 2-ton creature out of the river, but that didn't stop her from trying. "Huh!" And again, "Huh!" And again, "Huh!" "Hoo!" All the strength in her body wasn't enough to save her friend's life, but they hadn't come this far for it to end now. There had to be a way to save her. "Somebody help!" she screamed Elsie. Her voice echoed across the ice. In the distance, she could see a handful of the Chelsea pensioners in their distinctive scarlet coats and tricorn hats coming to the rescue. Titch was leading from the front. Under their arms, the old soldiers were holding a thick rope, which snaked its way across the ice back to the ship. Above their heads, the Zeppelin was circling for another attack. "Die, monster, die!" yelled Buckshot. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat. The machine gun blasted. Another hail of bullets sent shards of ice into the air. Kaboom! Suddenly, the Zeppelin began coming around again to make another attack. "Throw me the rope!" called out Elsie. The mammoth was sinking fast. Now only the tips of her tusks were bobbing out of the icy water. Elsie hooked on the end of the rope around one of her tusks and tied it tight. "Heave!" she ordered. The old soldiers all gripped the rope and heaved as hard as they could, just managing to pull the mammoth's head out of the water. The animal spluttered and let out a deafening "Hoo!" Aboard HMS Victory, it was all hands on deck, as the remaining pensioners took the end of the rope on the Admiral's count. "On 3! 1, 2, 3, heave!" They all heaved, lifting the mammoth up out of the freezing water. Wooly landed with a terrific thump on the ice. "Doof! Hoo!" she sighed. Yes, shouted Elsie, looking behind Wooly. She saw 2 arcs of policemen and military policemen closing in on them. Lift the sails, she called out. Excuse me, young lady, called back the Admiral. I am in charge of this ship. All right, then, you say it. Lift the sails. As the magnificent sails of the HMS Victory were hoisted for the first time in years, whoosh, 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 the gang on the ice pushed the Mammoth back onto her feet. Go, 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 called out Elsie. She led the way across the ice to the ship, holding on to her friend so the Mammoth would not slip. In the sky, the Zeppelin was hovering around into position for yet another attack. Behind the machine gun, Lady Buckshot had the Mammoth in her sights once again. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. "Ugh!" screamed Titch as he clutched his stomach and sank to his knees. Titch Stitch, Chapter 56. "No!" screamed Dottie from the stern of the HMS Victory. "Titch!" "Titch, no! Have you been hit?" asked Elsie. "No, I've just got a stitch," he replied. Then in his most heroic tone, he announced, "I am not going to make it. You go on without me. Leave me here on the ice to die." "Die? Titch, you've only got a stitch." "It's a bad one, a really bad one. But promise me one thing, young Elsie." "What, Titch?" "Tell Dottie that I love her." "Ugh!" He clutched himself again. Elsie shook her head. She might be the child here, but so often she felt more grown-up than the grown-ups. "You tell her, Titch," said the girl, hooking her arm around his. "What's happening to my darling?" called out Dottie from the ship. "Titch has a stitch," replied Elsie. Then the girl turned her attention back to the private. "Now stop being silly, Titch. Stitch or no stitch, we're all getting on that ship." "I'll do my best, young miss." The wind billowed the sails, and the ship's hull began creaking on the ice. Crunch! A huge ramp was lowered from HMS Victory, landing on the ice with a bosh. "Wooly first!" shouted Elsie, as she gathered the handful of pensioners to get behind the animal to push her up the ramp by her bottom. As the boat rocked in the breaking ice, the ramp wobbled from side to side. "Whoo!" hooted the Mammoth. "Nearly there, my friend," called out Elsie, as she used all of her might to make the final push over into the ship. Thump! The wooden deck buckled a little under the Mammoth's weight. "Whoo!" "Hurrah!" cried all on board, overjoyed that their fairly hairy friend had made it. Above HMS Victory, the Zeppelin was flying low. "Now I've got you, ice monster," came a cry from the gondola. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. All the old soldiers hit the deck on HMS Victory was riddled with bullets. "Pow, pow, pow!" "I've been hit," yelled the Admiral. Dottie rushed over to him. "Where?" "In me leg." "Which one?" "The wooden one." Indeed, there was a bullet lodged in there. "Is it bleeding?" asked Dottie. "Yes, very badly." "I can't see any blood." "No, it's just sawdust." "Are you feeling any pain?" "Not at all. But I am not going to let that blasted woman get away with this." All right. That does it for chapters 55 and 56 of David Williams' Ice Monster. All right, my friends. Now, you, meaning all of you, will be answering questions with... Oh, come on. Let's do better. You will be answering each and every question with complete sentences. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Find something you want to improve on. Maybe find yourself a book, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.